Hi, and welcome back to the Shane Plays review series of IDW's Revolution, um, big, massive crossover event between all the Hasbro properties, G.I. Joe, Transformers, MICRONAUTS, M.A.S.K, Action Man, all this different stuff coming together. This will be I think the final video. It's all finally out. And when I say finally, I mean finally, because as I've mentioned in other videos, you know, the publishing schedule has not met what they said it was going to be, and I'll just leave it at that. And I think that's one of the weaknesses of this crossover event. I don't know if IDW has never done anything like this before. This many books and artists and creators and all this stuff all working together on one cohesive storyline. But it's definitely something I noticed, that not only were books late, according to the so-called timeline, the checklist. Let me see. I just had it a second ago. Let me see if I can find this checklist. Just had it. Just had it handy to show to you. And now I can't find it. I'll find it here in a second. But it's a joke. They completely blew whatever checklist that they said they were going to have for this coming out. Not only was stuff late, but for example, ROM number 4 just came out like a week or two ago, and this is supposed to be a prelude to Revolution. This is supposed to tell ROM's story leading up right before Revolution. And I mean, it's, so this is talking about stuff, that happened, I guess, a couple of months ago, according to the Revolution timeline. The books themselves have been late. They'll be like, oh, it'll be out in October. Well, it comes out in November, or it'll be out in November. We get it in December, or whatever. Which isn't so bad if everything is consistently backed up. But there was some stuff coming out on time, some stuff coming out late, so it was a little bit confusing. For example, Transformers Till All Are One, there's stuff referenced in like issue 2 or something of Revolution, and this didn't come out until like issue 4, something like that. I mean, I'd have to go back and double check the exact dates and all of that, but here's the checklist that they gave. Okay, and the main Revolution stuff is September through December, and you had like G.I. Joe Revolution number 1 was supposed to come out in October. I think it came out late November. So just stuff like that, and that's one of my. I'll get to my overall feelings of Revolution as a whole here in a second, but that is something that jumped out at me. That I don't know. Maybe I'm OCD. Maybe I'm a completionist or a perfectionist or whatever. But if you're telling a cohesive story and you're saying these parts are coming out at this point, and oh, by the way, this issue is going to mention stuff that happened in this one shot, but the one shot doesn't come out till a month later, that's just a little jarring to me. So that's probably my main beef with Revolution, was them not sticking to their own established timeline. And again, like I said, IDW has been publishing comics and does all kinds of entertainment properties. They put out good stuff, but I'm suspecting this is the first time that they've tried this mass crossover with multiple teams and books and all these deadlines and stuff like that, because it seemed to me like it fell apart a little bit on delivering on time. But enough about that. The stories themselves, and I'm going to go through the individual comics here in a second, but I'm just kind of giving my thoughts on Revolution as a whole. It was kind of a mixed bag. Some stuff was really good. Like, I really enjoyed the Action Man one shot. I love that dynamic between Action Man and Cup, the Transformer Cup. And there's a Revolutionaries comic coming that I'm probably going to pick up, because it's got like Cup and Action Man and a couple other people in it. And I liked that dynamic. I liked how John Barber wrote that. G.I. Joe was actually pretty good. I'll hit that here in a second. M.A.S.K, the M.A.S.K one shot was abysmal. And M.A.S.K's participation in Revolution as a whole, it just felt shoved in. And I mean, how do you do a 5-issue miniseries, and you have all these properties, and you're trying to bring them all in together and over, and all this stuff. And M.A.S.K felt, one, confusing, and 2 shoved in. And the Micronauts didn't seem confusing to me, but they didn't get as much, you know, screen time and page time, as you will, as I think if they needed to. So, like I said, it was a mixed bag. If I had to give the entire effort, you know, like, okay, we got an F here, we got some B pluses, B minuses, some C's, maybe an A here. If I had to give the whole thing an overall semester grade, I would give it a C. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It's kind of interesting at points, and there's some cool moments, but overall, I think that they did not execute as well as they could have on the entire thing as a whole. Now, there were individual parts that were very good. And the Revolution mini-series as a whole, issues 1 through 5, was pretty good. It got messy at the end. The last issue is just a big mess. There's so much stuff going on. And the tying up of everything at the end was like, whoa, what? So there's just so, but how can you not have it like that when you have that many elements coming together? It was, I think maybe they bit off more than they could chew, to be quite honest. I think it may have been more interesting storytelling wise and better to do some Transformers G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe Micronauts, M.A.S.K, Action Man, if you follow, and do some limited series that way and build it all up and then bring it all together. I think that would have been better and less crazy. So I don't really regret buying it all because it was interesting to see what they were going to do. But I hope that their shared universe, Hasbro shared universe stuff moving forward, is done better. And I just don't know how any other way to put that. You know, it's a little sloppy. So anyway, let's get to the individual issues themselves. I'll start with the one shots, and then we'll review the final issues of 4 and 5 of the Revolution miniseries itself. I'm not really counting ROM number 4 as a one shot, but it is Revolution starts here, even though this came out basically when Revolution was finishing. And you know, this just basically continues setting up the ROM story. And there's some, you know, he's finding out that the Dire Wraiths are using Ore 13, and Ore 13 is very central to the Revolution storyline. By the way, do you see the little light behind me? Am I illuminating your comics world? Anyway, sorry about that. It's a good, interesting story. I like Rom. I'm probably going to keep going with Rom itself because Rom's a cool character, and I like what they're doing with him in the IDW universe. And at the end, we get some more Space Knights, so that's really cool. But there's just enough of a tease in here where Rom finds out that, you know, the Dire Wraiths have found a way to cloak themselves from his analyzer, his scanners, and that's Ore 13, which is what kind of ties him in to the overall Revolution storyline. And not to mention the fact that the Dire Wraiths, who are shape changers, have infiltrated many parts of government, including G.I. Joe. So in like Revolution number 1, he shows up and starts blasting G.I. Joes away, you know, and like major G.I. Joes. And people are like, what? But they don't know that they're actually Dire Wraiths. You know, they've been replaced by Dire Wraiths. So that was kind of how he ties in. And then because he's robot looking, because G.I. Joe was already fighting the Transformers, because Optimus Prime has annexed Earth in its own good. So they just assume that Rom is with the Transformers, and, you know, there's big misunderstanding and all that. And of course, Rom and Transformers get to fight and all that. And we've already talked about some of that stuff. So that was Rom number 4. I'm going to keep going with Rom for the time being. I like it. I like how they've done the Dire Wraiths and the blood magic that they do and all that stuff. It's pretty interesting. So, let's see here. Revolution, Transformers Till All Are One. This was a one-shot starring, Windblade? Windblade is kind of in the Transformers, IDW Transformers comic universe, has become a pretty important Transformer, pretty important character. And she has the ability to talk to Titan Transformers, which are these big, huge Transformers, and then they like Autobot City on Earth. The outpost on Earth is actually just one big Transformer. So she can talk to what are called Metro Titans, or a Titan, and so they need her to do that. And so she comes to Earth for the first time. She's been on Cybertron. She comes to Earth. Optimus Prime asks her to help. She ends up talking to the Titan, and through all of that, they find out that there's this major connection between the Transformers and microspace through one of the primes. You know, there's these 13 primes, and one of the primes is actually either created or found microspace or something like that. So that's like a major tie-in to the Micronauts for Revolution as a whole. The issue itself was okay. It's good in that through talking to the Titan, Windblade actually ends up sort of virtually, I don't think physically, but virtually in microspace. So this one shot is good from the perspective of that, because you actually, in her interacting, like I said, it's kind of weird. She's kind of there virtually because she's mentally connected to the Titan, who somehow can transfer over into microspace through it's kind of weird. There's a lot of stuff in Revolution that was kind of weird, but you just kind of take it on faith. And well, I don't know if take it on faith is the right word, but you know what I mean. You're just like, oh, okay, it's a comic book, we'll roll with it. But anyway, and she, in her interactions with some of the people in microspace, you get a lot of backstory on microspace you may not have known about, and kind of learn about some of the actors and the good guys and the bad guys and that sort of thing. So that was good. Now and then at the end of this one shot, Till All Are One, there were two Transformers one shots. There was Till All Are One and I guess Robots in Disguise, which I think featured Thundercracker or Skybreaker, which was a really good. I really enjoyed that one. That had a lot of humor in it and a good story. And I think maybe he's going to be part of the Revolutionaries team too. I'm not sure. Anyway, but there's also this nice tension at the end of this one where Windblade, who's very, very idealistic, asks Prime to help the microverse, and he's like, nope, I'm helping Earth, and that's it. And there's a kind of a conflict between them, and she has this right at the end. She's kind of like, anything for a Prime, and it's like, I'm going to help you because you're a Prime, but I'm not happy with you at all. And that was nice. Windblade, if you're not familiar, has become a very popular character, and she's an interesting character. I think that IDW has done a really good job with the Transformers universe, with the characters and the storylines. Some of it I'm like, it's a little dark. I don't want my Transformers to be that dark. But overall, it's very good. And Windblade is a good character if you're not familiar with her. So the other one shot was G.I. Joe Revolution #1. I really liked this. The art style, I'll try to maybe post a picture. The art style is a little rough at the beginning. You're like, oh, that's weird. It's almost kind of an unfinished kind of art style. But I really grew to like it as the story progressed, as the issue progressed. And it basically, it tells the story of some Joes going to check out a Joe installation that has gone silent. And what they don't know is that in that installation, there's a Cybertronian, and also dire wraiths have taken it over. Now, I think, not 100%, but I think the Cybertronian was kind of there as a prisoner. I think. But the dire wraiths were definitely there. And so this Joe team of Scarlet and, let's see, one thing I really like about IDW, they always put kind of a dramatis personae kind of roll call, whatever, at the beginning. And you have Scarlet, Roadblock, Rock and Roll, Quick Kick, Wild Bill, and Shipwreck. Kind of hit this island to go check out what the heck is going on. I think it's an island. And they run into some dire wraiths. Some of the Joes are dire wraiths. I won't say which ones. And so basically they find out there's these dire wraiths there, and then right at the end they find out that there's a Cybertronian, a Transformer on the island. So that's kind of the tie-in to Revolution. And there's this amazing scene, really well done, between Roadblock, and on the island already is a Joe named, I think, Grand Slam. And so Roadblock is like, charging the island, trying to get into the installation, and he runs into Grand Slam, and Grand Slam's like, halt! And they're both accusing each other of being shape changer dire wraiths. And they have a standoff, and at the end, and if it's not apparent by now, there's spoilers in these videos. Usually in comics they figure out a way to get around it. In this one, who is it? Not Roadblock. Rock and Roll. It's Rock and Roll, big, machine gunner. He blows Grand Slam away, and just, totally convinced he's a dire wraith, because he's already running into dire wraiths in the earlier part of the comic book. A Joe attacked him who was really a dire wraith. Turns out Grand Slam was a human and was trying to, protect the asset, I guess the Cybertronian or whatever. And, Rock and Roll is like, oh no. And it's just a great moment. Not only, I guess, a really good G.I. Joe moment, but a good comics moment. Is, usually they figure out a way around it, but no, he just blows him away. And it shows the danger of these dire wraiths. So, G.I. Joe, this was excellent. I'm probably going to keep going with G.I. Joe, give it a few issues, because it's the same creative team of, let's see, Aubrey Sitterson, Giannis Milogiannis. I don't mean to purposefully mess up these names. Colors by Laverne Kinzierski, et cetera, et cetera. So it almost seems maybe a team of artists and writers I never heard of, but I really liked it. So I think I'm going to give G.I. Joe a little bit more attention. Check out a few issues as it unfolds. So coming up next, we've got Revolution number 4 and Revolution number 5 to wrap up the series as a whole. I'll get to that right now, but one thing I want to say, I don't know, Fico Ossio, I guess I'm saying his name right, I love his art, or her art, perhaps it's a woman. And I'll try to find maybe a couple of screenshots to put up on the, in the video to make it a little bit better. But man, I love this guy's art, especially for this person's art, especially for drawing Transformers, is spectacular. I love this person's art. So that is a high point of Revolution as a whole in the Revolution series. I hope this person finds a lot more work, especially in the Transformers universe for IDW, because I really, really like their art a lot. Okay, so art aside, which again, the main art on the Revolution miniseries is fantastic. The other good stuff that I liked about the series was some of the storyline elements were cool. The OR 13 was kind of interesting. They needed that one common thing to pull, the microverse to Earth, to the ROM, to the Transformers, to G.I. Joe, all that stuff. That was kind of an interesting narrative element. I don't know if OR 13 was made up just for the Revolution or if it had been in the continuity before. I'm not sure. One thing I like about all of the IDW books that I read is they have the roll call, the dramatis personae or whatever persona from each of the various factions. That helps a little bit, and I like these previously. They have these previously pages that kind of give you a few panels from previous issues to give you kind of an idea of what's going on, and I like that. Also, the Revolution, I mentioned this in other videos, the Revolution miniseries, not the other one-shots, I don't think, but the miniseries itself has these, Marvel Handbook to the Marvel Universe style entries on various characters that are in the story from the different elements, G.I. Joe, Transformers, all that stuff. So I like that. In issue 4, you basically, there's my son. Say hi, Justice. Wave. Just wave. Say hi. Hi. There's my son. So he's hanging out. Hey, buddy. So I still need you to be quiet, okay? So the issue number 3 ended with this sort of looked like an impending showdown between Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe and the Micronauts and their ship, because the Micronauts had just made it to our universe, or at least this universe. And it kind of 4 kind of steps back a bit and shows Snake Eyes infiltrating the facility, and then confronting the Micronauts, and then Snake Eyes gets into it with RC, the Transformer RC, the pink Transformer, and he stabs her in the eye with his sword. So other things that are going on, Baron Karza is who is the big baddie from the Microverse. He's sort of the Darth Vader of the Microverse. Darth Vader and Emperor all rolled into one. He's in league with Miles Mayhem of M.A.S.K, and then Miles Mayhem is in league with the Dire Wraiths, if I remember correctly. They're all working together to try to get Baron Karza over and do so because Miles wants to rule the world and all that stuff. So there's this constant sort of tension between Matt Tracker, the leader of the M.A.S.K team, and then Miles is, Matt's, continuing to realize that something's not quite right with our fearless leader. And the character development and the backstory and the understanding why the M.A.S.K team works together and why Matt was even picked as the leader is one of the weakest elements of Revolution. M.A.S.K really did not get developed well. And M.A.S.K, the Mobile Armored Strike Command, all the little vehicles that convert into other modes, and they have masks. The pilots have masks that have special powers, and it's all based on Cybertronian technology, at least in this continuity. Anyway, and here's an amazing double-page spread of that artwork I'm talking about. FICO Osseo, just really like the artwork. So anyway, it ends up turning into a big free-for-all. Baron Karza comes through. Of course, the Dire Wraiths, pull a double cross on Miles Mayhem, of course, and all this stuff. And then Baron Karza absorbs the Dire Wraiths because he comes through. He's like 6 inches tall, and they're like, "This guy's not a threat." And then he absorbs the Dire. You okay, buddy? He absorbs the Dire Wraiths and turns into this big thing on the last page. That's him, and he does this "till all are one" line, which is of course a line that means a lot in the Transformers universe. But he's talking about, I'm absorbing all of this stuff, and there's this concept of interchanging, ENERCHANGING, interchanging in the Microverse, in the Micronauts world. That's very crucial to these 2 issues 4 and 5. And it either means combining with something, like 2 elements combining, like absorbing something into yourself, or maybe sending one thing one place and then bringing something. I don't quite get it. And that's a point I need to bring out of here. It's absolutely crucial to the last 2 issues of Revolution, but they say, well, you got to interchange, and you don't really know what interchanging is. There's a write-up on Baron Karza in one of the issues, in this issue 4, there's a write-up on Baron Karza, and it talks about interchanging, enabling him to alter his physical form in significant ways. He can detach body parts. He can transform into a war form. He can harness internal energies to manifest blasts of intense energy, etc., etc. That's interchange, and the different Micronauts talk about it. And I guess it's okay if you but not everybody's going to read these little entries at the end. And in a couple of these issues, they'll be like, interchange, and then something very important to the plot happens. They needed to explain that a little bit more, I really think, since it's so crucial to how things are going on. But anyway, it ends up, you got Baron Karza, who is, absorbed the Dire Wraiths. So it's basically Baron Karza, the Darth Vader of the Microverse, and the Wraiths versus, everybody else, including Miles Mayhem, because he's like, gosh darn it, if I can't rule the world, they're not going to rule the world. So that's how how issue 4 ends. Now, issue 5, let's see if I can find it here, is just a big mess. It's just a big mess. There's too much going on. Uh, you got all this set up, and then you got the big battle royale. You got the Transformers. You got G.I. Joe. You got M.A.S.K. You got ROM. You got the Micronauts. You've got the Dire Wraiths. You've got Baron Karza. You got all, and it's just so I barely. There's this big fight, stuff getting blown up. People being put into dire situations. Um, and it's just one big long, uh, like Transformers movies action scene, or that scene from Man of Steel, that like 20-minute fight between him and General Zod, where there's just so much going on. It's like, whoa, what is all going on here? And there's so many different moving parts and so many different elements. There's some cool scenes in it, but the overall the plot, the gestalt, if you will, the whole thing is just like, whoa, what, maybe I need to read it 2 or 3 times to understand everything that's going on. But I'm kind of a believer, especially in action scenes and action books, that you need to, you should be able to tell on the first read what the heck is going on. I mean, this isn't deep literature. This is, it's an action scene. It's one big long action scene. Help me understand what's going on here. And even this, as much as I love the art, there's so much going on in here. And a lot of the artist's job is to visually tell a story. This is the one book where I kind of feel like even the art, when I love the art, I've already bragged on it, even the artist kind of dropped the ball a little bit, because it's hard to tell what's going on in this issue. And then it ends with the big, we've got one chance, and they defeat Baron Karza using the space bridge. The Transformers have the space bridge thing, and again, the Micronauts use interchange. It's crucial to the plot, and you barely understand what interchange is. And then it ends that they think that the Micronauts died, but they didn't. The Micronauts were really captured by nefarious savages, or scientists, I guess, who are savages, but nefarious scientists who want to vivisect them because they're that tall. And then G.I. Joe is establishing itself as not just America's protector, but the world's protector. Optimus Prime is like, okay, I'm going to work with Earth instead of annexing Earth, so that kind of addresses some of that. So Rom has had an awakening at one point during the series, he's willing to sacrifice the microverse to save Earth, and he's kind of had an awakening. I can't be that rigid. So there's all this character development, and then even Miles Mayhem appears to sacrifice himself to save the world, but of course he leaves like a little note at the end that he's not really dead, and it's kind of it wraps everything up in a very messy way. And then it establishes the status quo for a lot of these characters and books moving forward. It was just too messy. In my opinion, the best part about this issue was the write-ups at the end. I really like this Helix character from G.I. Joe. It was just messy. And then there's an ad in here for Revolutionaries #1, which I'm really looking forward to. It's Cup, Action Man. Looks like ROM may be in it, so I'm not sure what all, but I'm really looking forward to Revolutionary. I'll keep up with ROM, Revolutionaries, and maybe G.I. Joe. I already read the Transformers stuff. So again, there was some good moments in Revolution as a whole, but as a whole, it was a little sloppy, and that last issue was just, I could barely tell what was going on. It needed probably at least one. They did a 5-issue series. Maybe they needed to do maybe one more issue to let it breathe a little bit more. I don't know. But that's my take. There were some high points throughout the whole thing, but overall, between the publishing dates seeing out of order and late. And then some of the messiness of the storytelling, especially that M.A.S.K. #1, and then this last issue of the main miniseries. I just and then some other stuff I mentioned in other videos. I'll give it a C overall. Give it a C. It started stronger than it finished anyway. you know, and there was some cool stuff, and I guess it got the Micronauts into, you know, the Hasbro shared universe and IDW. You know, it did some stuff that maybe can set up some nice stuff for future storytelling. But you know, maybe it was just the inexperience of IDW and this sort of thing, but could have been better. Don't necessarily regret reading it just for checking it all out and seeing how it was going to do, but I probably wouldn't revisit and read it all again. I couldn't see myself doing that. So anyway, thanks for watching the Shane Plays review series of IDW's Revolution, the property Hasbro crossover event. Turning, you know, shared universes are the big thing right now. I love your comments and questions and thumbs up and all that stuff on the video if you so choose to leave one. And make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching Shane Plays.